In a vast wasteland of entertainment where radio has become obsolete, stands an embittered man teetering at the edge of sanity. With help from radio friends, he's about to embark on a global mission that would change the course of history as we know it. Broadcasting live from the secret studios on the banks of the Brandywine River in Delaware is Mitchel K.C. Hill. And up to the Great White North in Vancouver is Alexander Knight.
And here we are, live on the air on another podcast of The Last Angry DJ, show number 49. We are teetering on the edge of 50 shows. Everybody said it wasn't possible. Nobody said it would succeed. We'll find out. Maybe there's a lot that can happen in a week, so we'll see what happens. My name is Mitchel K.C. Hill. I'm a former radio guy. I guess I'm always a radio guy, but I kind of refer to myself as a former on-air radio guy, and I take care of the old stuff. I'm the guy from the golden age of broadcasting, and my cohort, Alexander Knight, is the new guy. And here he is to talk about what new guys think so that we have that point of view. Mr. New Guy.
Mitch. Good to be here for episode 49 on The Last Angry DJ, the show that bridges the gap between old media and new media. We interview luminaries in the world of broadcast, everyone from ex-DJs to salespeople to independent radio station owners, and of course content creators, YouTubers and podcasters as well. And we try to figure out how this entire landscape is changing and what we need to do to make sure that we remain successful in what we do. And I'm excited about today's guest. We have a guest that was, he was nice enough to come on the first show. It's hard when you launch a show and it's hard to find guests. And I'm very pleased to have Steve Streiker back on the show.
And here he is, Steve Streiker, our returning hero from the first show, as Alex just mentioned. Steve is a expert on just about everything. Talk to him. Within 5 minutes, you'll know that he knows everything, probably more than you do, about anything.
Oh, don't say that. I'll get in trouble.
You get letters? Do you get letters from the show? Like, have you ever done anything on this part? This is your third appearance, I believe, on the program.
Well, yes. I'm very happy. I was your beta when we were texting the technical facilities. I was a guest.
Is it more of an alpha? Because I recall it to being quite the disaster. Sort of like the Wright brothers' first flight compared to watching an SR-71 Black Hawk take off. It's literally that different from where we were or where we are. But we're very happy to have you here, Steve, because we can talk about a multitude of subjects of which you have fascinating details. There's a shot of you back in your WMPH days.
No, that's me on the air at 96 Super Q, WLEQ, Fort Myers, Naples, Florida.
Come on, give us a little bit of the Q man and the Q van. Come on.
I'm behind a 1978 Datsun B210 with a 96 Super Q history of rock and roll sticker. If they pull over or wave their hand, I got some McDonald's riblet sandwich coupons, so pull on over.
So when you walk up to the car when they won, do you literally just walk up to the window and dump it inside the car and say, "Get the hell out of here"?
By the way,
there you are.
So that's me driving the Q van in 1978 or 9.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Are we supposed to be seeing a photo? Because I'm not seeing anything.
I'm seeing them shared on my sharing screen. So
gotcha.
Can you?
The audience is not seeing that.
Oh, they're not. Sorry, folks.
Oh, sorry.
See, I'm cheating because I'm looking at a screen that's showing me the picture of Steve.
Yeah, well,
so how does he get?
I don't know if you guys can show that picture, but if you can, you can. I'll leave it up there.
Alex is twisting the knobs of Mimo Live to find out if it can happen. Next time, just to give us a warning, Steve.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just kind of did that on the fly.
Steve
I
is
used
showing
to be in
his
the radio
pictures.
business. I've been out of the radio. I haven't gotten a paycheck in the radio business since 1987 or 8, something like that.
Yeah, neither have I.
No, I'm sorry, 1988. It wasn't that long ago. But it was 35 years I've been out of the radio business.
So what are you now? I mean, just bring us up to date.
Well, I'm a technology lawyer. I'm a proud graduate of the University of Missouri, Kansas City School of Law in Kansas City. And I've been a lawyer for 30 some odd years and 35 years. And I work with technology companies. I worked for AT&T and Sprint for many years, and on telecommunications issues, especially international telecommunications issues with international roaming. You know, when you're in Japan and you want to use your Sprint mobile phone, and there's all sorts of arrangements and contracts and et cetera that go around that. And I was the primary person responsible for that at Sprint. And before that, I worked with large corporate customers at AT&T. I lived in New York City. Unfortunately, I lived down the block from the attack on 9/11.
Were you there?
Yeah, Jackie and I lived in New York City on 9/11. Absolutely.
Did you watch it with your own eyeballs to watch the towers coming down?
Well, I mean, I'll tell the compressed, maybe 40-second version of the story. I was supposed to go to Los Angeles the next day, and I needed for client appointments, for a meeting, and I wanted to get my shoe shined, so I took the 4 train from my apartment on 29th Street to Grand Central Terminal. I was getting my shoe shined, and Jacqueline Streiker, who I'm married to now, she had just moved in with me. She moved from Kansas City into my 566 square foot apartment in New York
Yikes.
City on the 23rd floor overlooking the Empire State Building. It was a great apartment. And she was working as an executive at Macy's, but they don't go to work in the retail business till like 10:30 in the morning. And she called me and said, "Hey, you know, there's some small plane." My friend David McKenzie and I and Jackie had been out in a Cessna 172 flying around I'm a pilot, and we were flying around the Statue of Liberty that weekend before the attack. And she said, "You know, one of those small planes we were in this weekend?" I said, "Yeah." "Well, it crashed into the World Trade Center." And I said to her, "Wow, that sucks for whoever's flying that plane." And then I walked out onto Madison Avenue. There's tunnels underneath. My office at the time had just moved from right across from the World Trade Center in the 6th and Canal Street, and to this brand new office for a new joint venture we were doing with British Telecom. And as I walked into the building, the second plane hit, and it was on a giant TV monitor because the other tenants in the building were big financial firms, C.E. Underberg, and I watched the second plane go right in. So clearly it was not an accident. And then I went up in the elevator. It got even stranger. I went up in the elevator and I called my oldest friend, Jonathan Rains, who worked at a company called Bureau of National Affairs, which is now Bloomberg, a part of Bloomberg. And his office overlooked the Potomac River and the Pentagon. And I said to him, "Jonathan, we're under attack. A plane just hit the World Trade Center." And he said, No, it's not the World Trade Center. I just watched a plane fly into the Pentagon." I said, "No, it's not the Pentagon. It's the World Trade." And then all of a sudden it occurred to both of us that we were talking about the same thing that was going on.
Wow.
So and then I was one of the few AT&T executives left in Manhattan after the evacuation. And so for the next week, I was dispatched to the, first it was in the Armory, which was down the street from my apartment. Then they moved it over to the Javits Center where the emergency response setup was. And so I coordinated things like we had to redo the fiber optics down to the New York Stock Exchange from some facility because they had destroyed all of our connections to the New York Stock Exchange, which went from that telephone exchange that had collapsed over to Wall Street. And so I was working with a crew, the engineers that were running temporary fiber optic cable from the New York Bell right next to the Queensboro Bridge down the middle of streets and down to Wall Street. And that's one of the reasons that, I mean, not just my work, but a lot of people's work, that the New York Stock Exchange was able to open on Thursday. Because we were able to, on Wednesday night, be able to get connectivity into the AT&T data network for the New York Stock Exchange.
Well, thank you for your service. Appreciate it. It was a horrible time in the history of the U.S., and 9/11 will forever be branded, I mean, in all the history books moving forward. And speaking of disasters, tell us what happened in Washington with the Black Hawk helicopter and that commuter jet that crashed right over the Potomac. How's that possible?
Well, in a funny way, it broadcasts some positive news about commercial aviation, in that we haven't had a fatal U.S. air carrier accident for 24 years in the United States. Now, I should say a crash, because there was one person killed in a Southwest Airlines flight when they were unfortunately sucked out the window after an engine failed through a blade. But we haven't had a mass casualty event for 24 years.
Yeah, but 2 days later, there's a crash of a Learjet in Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, that's Part 135 operations. That was a charter, on-demand charter operation. Actually, it was a Mexican registered and certified operation. But that's, that was 6 people, and there were, I think, what was it, 67 people killed in Washington, D.C. Both of them incredibly sad, and everybody's,
definitely.
What happened? Well, of course, the National Transportation Safety Board will own the answer to that question. But, I've been flying since I was 14 years old, and it's, the helicopter was probably 200 feet higher than they were authorized on that route. Probably that route shouldn't have been controlled the way ATC had been controlling it for many years. And, a lot of times when we fly, we depend on the big sky theory that we're not going to run into another airplane. And unfortunately, that methodology expired on, what was it, on, I've lost track of what day it was, on Thursday night, where, unfortunately, the Black Hawk hit the CRJ 700, which was American Airlines PSA, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of American Airlines, operating as American Eagle. And unfortunately, everybody on the helicopter, and everybody knows what happened. Everybody unfortunately perished.
Again, I'm not a pilot, I'm not an expert like you are, but I recall flying with the Maryland State Police in an A-Star helicopter. That's a Dauphine. And I was sitting in the back, and we were looking for some sniper or something over King George's County, Baltimore.
Wow.
And we were flying. I said, how far do you have to keep separated? I was talking to the pilot. How far do you keep separated from other aircraft? He said, we just sort of keep an eyeball out for him. We don't really wait for somebody to tell us, or the headsets. And I just want to finish the story real quick.
Yeah.
And I said, well, there's one of those A-Stars or whatever they are that they fly out of Dover.
Right.
Was just under us. I mean, literally, I could spit on it. And I said, there's an aircraft right below us. Don't you guys worry about things like wingtip vortices? And the pilot takes the aircraft and goes, whoop, like this. And I'm like, God, nobody. If he's not looking out, and it depends on my eyes.
You do have to watch out for the helicopters, because the rotor vortex can flip over a light airplane.
Sure.
And in fact, it happened to a friend of mine that was a flight instructor. They were flying a Cessna 162 Skycatcher, and it pushed it into the airport signs and shredded the airplane.
A Star Lifter or whatever the heck. What is the aircraft they fly out of Dover? The big
C5A Galaxy.
C5 and C-17.
And
Okay,
they fly
good,
the
thank you.
C-17.
That's
over
Mark.
there too,
Mark Giuliani's here with us.
Right.
And they have wingtip vortices that come off the ends of the wing, like little whirls of tornadoes.
Yeah.
And that'll take care of a small aircraft,
Well, no,
helicopter
it's killed
or otherwise.
many general aviation pilots. The 757s are really you have to stay. My goal, when I teach, I'm a flight instructor. I want people to stay 3 minutes behind a 757. They have some very, very intense wingtip vortices. Yeah.
Well, anyhow, I'm sure the president of the United States has already figured out what the problem is, and he's going to fix it
of course,
personally.
he has all the answers. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that'll get squared away. So we're sorry about those things. It's tough that they happen, but of course everybody wants to know. And if you're watching the news, like everything else, that's the news cycle now of like who shot Paul and who did what, who's to blame. We tend to consume that kind of news on a regular basis. So we'll be interested to see what the FAA and the NTSB figures out. What caused that, because that's an unfortunate accident.
Well, the early indication is that the helicopter that helicopter route that they were flying on has a hard maximum altitude of 200 feet above sea level, and they were probably about 400 feet above sea level. But, you know, I hate to blame either crew. First of all, I'm not going to blame the CRJ crew. They had no culpability in the accident at all. But this is a systemic problem in the airspace in Washington that we could operate, because the traffic coming into runway 33 at that point over the Potomac would only be about 450 feet above the Potomac there. And that's not enough separation, 200 feet, because we're human beings. We don't always fly exactly at the altitude we're assigned.
Right.
We sometimes make a mistake, and they made a mistake that night. Supposedly, there's probably other factors involved, because they accepted what's called visual separation. And when you're a pilot and you accept visual separation, it's your responsibility to maintain separation from the other aircraft. Now, there's a good chance that they had accepted that visual separation, but were looking at a different airplane. And you never saw you never see the bullet that gets you. And that's what I think probably happened that night.
Well, thanks for your insight.
But just to put one more sentence on that, we need some systematic reform in the airspace in the Washington, D.C. capital area, because when you have jets and helicopters in close proximity, bad things can happen.
Yeah, plus the airspace is complicated over the capital of the U.S. of A. Anyhow.
Well, that's another factor that adds to the danger, because you have to stay out of what it's called P-57. I think it's the prohibited area around the White House and the Capitol, and the vice president's up in the Naval Observatory. Thou shall not fly into that area. So you have to thread your way in a very small little piece of airspace. Yeah.
We get that every once in a while. We did over Joe Biden's house on Barley Mill Road in Newcastle County, Delaware.
Well, that's because they had the temporary flight restrictions. The President of the United States always has a 30-mile, basically, exclusion zone around wherever the United States president is.
And that's about the size of Delaware, so it's very complicated.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you going to do? Well, thanks for your service on that. And once again, you're proving my point is that you know a little bit about everything. In fact, you may know a lot about that. What can you tell us about Punxsutawney Phil in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania? That's the Groundhog Day headquarters. Did something happen today? Anybody know? Anybody get the word?
All I know is that he didn't see a shadow, and I guess we have 6 more weeks of winter, because that's what the news story this morning said.
Does Punxsutawney offer any suggestions for low-load mutual bonds or funds or things like that?
In our house, we...
Here he's got his own version of Punxsutawney. He has a dachshund.
She went outside and she didn't see her shadow, so I confirm the scientific analysis.
Every time you pick that dog, and by the way, I love your dog, Elkie. She's about 12 years old?
She's 12, yeah.
She has that look on her face of long-standing pain and suffering of being handled or dressed up in weird outfits for the holidays. And she obviously loves you, and you love her. And I'm hoping to get another dog this coming spring. We'll see what happens. I need another replacement.
We all miss Paddywhack.
Paddywhack, the corgi, my dog. And I want to take the moment to thank the people that gave to my GoFundMe. There was a lot of controversy on me running that, but what the heck? I did it anyhow. All right, changing the subject. We found out about Punxsutawney. We talked about a couple of disasters that are happening to go on. Let's talk about the big game coming up. We're not allowed to say Super Bowl, by the way, so we call it the big game. So don't say Super Bowl. I'm not sure what that means. What are you passing? Oh, it's a tomahawk. I got it. Your Steve is making the Chiefs.
Okay, I grew up. I have a problem because I went to Mount Pleasant High School in Wilmington, Delaware, down the street from your house, and I grew up in the Philadelphia area, but I live majority of my adult life in Kansas City, even though I live in Tampa now. And huge Chiefs fan. Even when they sucked, I was a Chiefs fan. And of course they don't.
And the Eagles don't or didn't. They had their shares.
Had their years of sucking.
Yeah, they've ultimate suckers and whatever else is out there.
Hey, listen, they're both great football teams, and the Buffalo Bills, I thought they beat the Chiefs, to be honest with you. They are an excellent football team too. And Washington, Man, that would have been a fairy tale if they made it with Jaden. Or is it Jaden or Jason? Mark,
I don't keep track.
you don't keep up with it?
No, I follow Canadian football.
Yeah, there we go. There's going to be a 25% tariff on Canadian football next week.
Yeah, how do you feel about that tariff coming, Alex? It's is it just dueling presidents here or what? What's going on?
Oh, I really don't want to get into it. I don't get into moral panic mode usually, because I just want to wait and see because nothing's happened yet. So when something does happen, I'll probably talk about it with people, but as of now, I'm not really worried about it.
Well, what does it mean? Maple syrup is going to cost extra?
We do make other products other than maple syrup, Mitch. There are other products than back bacon and maple syrup. But thank you for bringing that up.
Those are the two I usually link on to. Sorry about that. I just couldn't help myself. So, it's Jaden Daniels is the Commanders quarterback.
Daniels, absolutely.
Okay.
He's going to have a tremendous career in the NFL based on what we saw this year from him. Fantastic player. Yeah.
Interesting side effect of the the big game. The Super Bowl. Screw it. We're just going to say Super Bowl here. Super Bowl for all the.
I think we have fair use right to say a few of that.
See, again, Steve is proving not only is he a pilot and a instructor, he's also an attorney. I guess you're allowed to practice on YouTube. Do you have YouTube rights for practicing legal?
Well, nothing in this should be construed as legal guidance or information.
So Steve is advising me because he's my personal legal advisor. So
sadly, I am.
Yeah, sadly he is, and sadly I need his advice.
Yeah, he's got our backs.
Exactly, he's got our backs.
Do.
But here's an interesting side effect. Right now, this week leading up to the big game, is the biggest selling time for flat screen TVs.
Absolutely,
because apparently this is where people dig deep. And no dollar is left untouched to buy a giant flat screen TV
or multiple ones. Some people have parties where they have like 6 screens up.
Let's talk about that. I was watching a special that had Neil deGrasse Tyson. I think he has a thing called Star Talk, and he was talking about the evolution of flat panels when they first came out. I think they first came out as plasma screens way back when, 30 years ago. They cost about $10,000 or $15,000, and now, just to show you the difference in price and how that's changed, you can go to Costco or to Walmart's and buy a screen for like $400 or $200. Disposable TVs and big screens, like 55-inch screens that are pretty good. In fact, Walmart's bought Vizio, which was a major manufacturer over in Asia of flat screen. There's only like 4 companies that make flat screen TVs.
I work for Harman, which was owned by
Again,
Samsung.
Steve is the expert on everything. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was senior counsel at Harman, but I was the pro division, the audio, the lighting and professional amps, crown amps, AKG microphones right here, and
JBL.
JBL line array speakers and all that stuff. But we were owned by Samsung, and Samsung makes around, 40% of all the flat screens used in phones, TV sets, you name it. South Korea, LG and Samsung make the majority of them, I think, and Toshiba in Japan.
They make nice screens, but I have to say the one thing that drives me crazy, which prevents me from buying a Samsung, is that they don't want to pay the licensing for Dolby Vision. I will not buy a TV that does not support both HDR and the Dolby Vision HDR standard. That drives me insane. For those that care, like for cinephiles, for people that care about that stuff, it's nice to have support for both standards. They have the money. I don't understand why they don't spend the money on the licensing.
I have Amazon Fire TVs. Do they have that?
Probably. I'm sure. I'm pretty sure every box out there now does the. I don't use the built-in general. My general recommendation is never ever connect your TV to the internet. Always use a third-party media box, because the amount of data collection that's happening there, and plus some of these like the Android TV OS stuff. I mean, the amount of ads that are in there drives me absolutely crazy.
By the way,
which is why I have an Apple TV.
That's the reason that Walmart bought Vizio. It wasn't because they wanted to own a TV company. It's because they wanted that interface layer, and they want to be able to broadcast ads on that platform for Walmart and Walmart's
no
vendors.
thanks.
Like,
Yeah,
in other words,
if you watch a show that features some product, chances are that product's going to show up on that push layer that you're just talking about.
yeah, but I mean, Walmart now can go to Coca-Cola and say, look, I want another 4% off of the deliveries next month in exchange for giving you some exposure on the Vizio platform. And, that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Wouldn't you agree, Mark?
Yeah, I mean it's incredible because it's OTT. You're able to hit everybody that buys Vizio TVs, whether they're buying them from Walmart or not.
Right.
And the interesting point is that a lot of these TV companies, even the big boys like Sony and Samsung, are receiving money from the streamers like Google and Netflix, because you notice that some of the remotes have the actual button that says Netflix or Google or Roku.
Right.
And
They pay
they're
for
getting
that.
money. They're getting money for that. And the other thing is that, as Alex has warned us, you need to opt out. You can't expect the default method not to give out that data, because that data goes out the minute you plug that TV into the internet. You have to go in and dig lower and find the data so that you don't supply all that. If you have a thing about privacy.
But here's the equation on that. First of all, you can do that, but most people, they don't even know how to go down and navigate to those. Okay. But the problem is sometimes you turn the data sharing off, and you lose utility from the operating system to, if you can use Chrome without it, looking at what your web usage is, or you can turn your cookies off, but then you won't be able to get the beneficial things that come with that.
And the other problem that's associated with that is that I've got this big, expensive Sony TV downstairs that I paid a big nickel. I got knuckled, and it's got this Google Android operating system in there. But it's like you've got this huge TV with all this processing power to manipulate the pixels to make it look beautiful, and they've got this shitty, low-powered CPU driving the operating system. I don't understand that. They're saving money on that, but they're charging you for the huge, great-looking picture. My biggest complaint about it all is I miss the days when you had a TV that you plugged the source into it and you turned it on and it made pictures.
Yeah, well, I hate that too. Like in the morning, I turned the downstairs TV on, and I just wanted to be on the channel I watch in the morning that I may have left it on the night before. No, I got to sit there. And if I walk away from it, it starts playing ads on the splash screen for Fire TV. And I got to walk back to it. And I have to tune in YouTube TV. And then I have to find the channel I want. CNBC.
Alex, you were saying something?
Yeah. Well, my complaint is the same thing. For me, number one, other than just the privacy stuff, I actually care a lot about performance. And that is the thing that drives me crazy, is that the substandard, janky performance of the built-in operating system and the way the apps operate. So for me, and I've tested a lot of boxes, for me, there's no smoother experience than a 4K Apple TV box. I mean, it's over-engineered with the processing power that they put in that things.
That's too much trouble for me. I just have Fire TV and I have the apps that run on it.
Fair enough.
Use whatever you like. I have to reboot my TV because it freezes up.
My guys that like Best Buy and the Magnolia and a few other places, they say that 80% of all the high-end installations they do have got an Apple TV box going. Excuse me. I had Taco Bell. Has an Apple TV box as the main way of surfing the channels. And that one little remote that Apple makes that works so well is doing the job of allowing you to have just one remote. And the Apple TV, I agree with Alex 100% that that's the way to go. But the idea that the cost of these things are all over the place. I bought what I considered to be the best looking Sony TV. It is about 4 years ago. Was the Bravia, I think it's a 90L, something like that. It's a OLED, OLED, I don't know whatever you like to say those words. And it makes beautiful pictures. The downside was that it's in my main living room where I've got a big picture window overlooking the Brandywine. And the OLEDs don't pump out as many nits as a micro LED TV does. So I have to keep it cranked all the way up. Luckily, I've got a curtain that I can close. If I'm in a cinematic mode and I want to see, like 2001 remastered to 4K, I can do that, or some other show. But a couple of other faux pas that people get when they buy a TV is, and I'm gonna do my in their face thing. Don't hang your TV, your flat panel TV, over the fireplace. So many people have to do that. I don't know why. Yeah, you're looking up at it, first of all, so it's going to put a crick in your neck. The other thing is you're going to get soot on the front of the TV, or cause all kinds of, when you get carbon inside of a flat panel TV.
If you use your fireplace, a lot of people never use their fireplace, but it's still a crummy place to put a video screen. Yeah,
it's a janky.
You don't want heat. You don't want heat anywhere near that TV. Think about how long you're going to have that thing. I wouldn't.
So, $400, you just go buy another one at Walmart on
for $40 a replacement. But I know people just think, well, that's aesthetically the best place, the only place that they can put it in their room. Don't hang your TV over a fireplace. It's like a circle with a line through it.
Well, Samsung makes one that has a picture frame around it and it looks like a painting.
Yeah, so you can do that yourself if you have a little Home Depot skills. So that's one of the things not to do. The other thing is the distance away you are from your flat panel TV and the size of the TV. For example, if it's a 55-inch, which is sort of like the entry-level flat panel size, anything under 8 feet is wasted if you're that close to the TV, because it's not an optimum viewing angle because of the pixel pitch and things like that. I have a 65-inch Sony Bravia downstairs, and I'm about 10 feet away from it, and it's okay. And what it also means is, when and if they come out with 8K, which is not likely to happen tomorrow, but it's around on some places, you'll never see the difference between 4K and 8K.
Well, there's
maybe Alex could.
There's calculators on the web. You can put in your viewing distance from the couch or wherever you watch TV to the screen, and it will tell you what the optimum range of display sizes are for your living room.
Okay, but so that's the other thing is that consider the pixel pitch, which is how close those little pixels are to each other. The closer they are, the better. Especially if you're going to put it on a camera. It's like if I had it in the background. If it's a tight pixel ratio, you're going to get less moire and other interference. But your eyes, with a persistence of vision, really want you to be a optimum level. So if you're shooting for a 120-inch TV, or is like the guys at Best Buy, I asked them, I said, who can when they first came out, they were like $30,000, $40,000. And I said, who the hell buys these? He said, drug dealers. So if somebody has a 120-inch TV screen in their house, chances are they're selling pharmaceuticals to pay for the TV set. So you don't need to go that fat. 72 inches, yeah, that's kind of the outside edge for most people. And there's this new thing called micro LED, which is super bright and almost has the same quality of an OLED or OLED. What is the proper way to say that, Alexander? Is it OLED or OLED? How do you say that?
You can say it both ways. Most people just say OLED.
OLED, okay. OLED. So if you say OLED and that's the one you want to use,
that is correct.
That's the correct way to pronounce. So I'm saying all these things because with the big game coming up on the 9th, chances are you're going to be running out to Best Buy. And the other thing is Best Buy has changed their the return issues, because Steve just said he's going to go buy a 80-inch flat panel and then return it after the game. No, I don't think you can get away with that anymore.
I'm not going to do that, but a lot of people do that. But you can still do that at Walmart because, not Walmart, well, probably at Walmart, but Costco gives you 30 days to return it, and people do go out and buy them and then for the party and then take them back. Yeah.
And I still love it. Look, I'm a geek snob with tech stuff. And when my friends brag that they've got a 65-inch Vizio in their living room, I say, well, that's very nice. I don't shame them. I don't shame them. But at the same time, my sensibilities, and I do video for a living. I notice the difference, and it does.
Yeah, I'm
says the guy with the the old Apple cinema displays next to me over here. You can't
I
see
still
them 'cause
have
I
my
hold the
cinema
camera.
displays, but I'm also due for an upgrade too. I have a Vizio TV actually that does both HDR and Dolby Vision. It's 51 inch, so by today's standards, that's a little on the smaller side. But I'd love to go to a 65 or maybe even a 75. I've got room
Well,
for
again,
it.
it
So
depends on how your viewing distance from your seated position. Because I have been in people's houses that have too big a TV. Um,
yeah,
and
that's a
I was
thing.
invited to the Chiefs viewing party down the street here, and they have the most beautiful setup. That they have one of their bedrooms is not a bedroom; it's a viewing room, like a home theater, and they have a actually super high quality projection TV, the best I've ever seen, and like a $4,000 stereo setup for the audio, and the whole wall is the TV, and it was almost uncomfortable how large it was. Yeah.
I never got into projection. It just was one of those things. A lot of the theater purists swear by it, but a good project like a Sony DLP type projector, I think the last time I checked the price on, they're like $60,000 the projector.
Well, this one I asked about, and it was multiple thousands of dollars, and it was not like one leftover from your community college, classroom. It was a really high quality one, and it was a great viewing experience.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
We just got for the radio station to do seminars and things. It's a short throw projector, 4K. You put it this far from the wall, it'll do 120 inches. It's pretty incredible.
Wow.
Yeah,
And you
there's
can get
some
rid of the
there's some
keystoning and everything
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
on it.
there's some weird science on the lens technology to make that happen. Yeah, I've seen that before, where you can put them right up against a wall or hang them on the ceiling,
Wow.
right close to them, and it's okay. But I still like the direct view flat panels, and I don't like them over the fireplace. And I remember you said Steve, you worked for Samsung. Didn't they have a famous lawsuit when they had the gestural remote control where you made gestures to the TV and it would change things? And didn't they get into trouble because they were collecting information when people were watching TV? Like, imagine a new married couple watching TV and they see Sex in the
Well,
City and they get excited.
I don't remember that lawsuit, but I'll tell you, that would be an issue if they were capturing video from the camera. Yeah.
All right, there you go. All right, we've kind of extinguished that particular subject. Mark, we got some questions coming up here.
We do. So, questions here from me. Steve, could you talk about what technologies in the media today result in the most litigation?
Cool question.
Well, I'm not a litigator, so I'm probably not the best prepared to answer that question. So read me the question. What issues?
It's
and
basically
technology-
what of all the new technologies today, what winds up in court the most? For instance, capturing data without telling people.
Well, data privacy regulations, especially if you're dealing in the EU with what's called the General Data Protection Regulations, GDPR. If you violate GDPR in Europe, there's some very high fines that you can be assessed. And Facebook was, I think, tagged for over $1 billion for GDPR violations. They really are after U.S. companies. It's really a trade restriction thing.
Did they
But in
pay
the
it?
United States, California has the CCPA, the California Privacy Act, that gives you the right to be forgotten, and you have to implement that properly in your if you're doing business with California. Not just people in California, but California domiciliaries. They might live in Washington, D.C. or Germany, but if they're Californians, theoretically, you got to comply with that rule. Many states, New York has a new data privacy regulation. There's 2 or 3 other states that have some very specific data privacy regulations that everybody, is having to deal with. The United States generally doesn't have a nationwide set of privacy rules, although there are rules from the trade. The Federal Trade Commission has regulations that organizations can run afoul of. But that's something that's probably high on everyone's list if you're a technology lawyer at those companies. Make sure you're in compliance with all of the jurisdictional privacy regulations that you're going to have to, come across.
Okay, Alex has a question. Don't we have an impending major litigation issue with AI? For example, summarizing full books that authors expect you to pay for, or stealing people's likeness or voice. How are we going to moderate this?
Well, do you want me to just address that? That is an area that I think is going to be very rife for damages being recovered. There's a lawsuit going on right now with Getty Images where the trainers, the algorithmical trainers of ChatGPT said, "Oh no, we're only using public domain information. We're not stealing any." Well, that's not true because I'm not sure if it's ChatGPT, but one of the AI image generators was generating images with the Getty image watermark in there. Well, obviously,
Wow.
clearly they were stealing the images off of Getty Images if the watermark's in there. So that's the dirty little secret, I think, of the training of, by the way, these are called large language models, LLMs, and they've been trained. You have just like a little baby has to be taught the English language and social mores and the knowledge that's why we go to school. We're being trained, right? Well, the AI algorithms are trained on things like the Wall Street Journal text and the New York Times text and traffic on the web and et cetera, et cetera. The question is, who owns that intellectual property that they've been trained on? My dad was a fairly prolific author and in a particular academic field. And, if I go ask, I use Claude as my main go-to for work I do, which is made by Anthropic. Well, if I pose a question in his academic field and I see some paragraphs that are clearly in my father's voice or based on research or writings of my father, I own the copyrights to all my deceased father's work. I never granted them to Anthropic or ChatGPT.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind, my limited knowledge of AI, is that it's using what information is out there on the cloud, which means that it's not creatively generating these. It's collaborating with whatever is already out there. So if we all say
because it's out there doesn't mean you have the intellectual copyright ability
right.
to use it, fair usage rights.
Right. Well, that's where I was headed.
You can use a little piece of it in an academic paper, but you can't take the entire contents of the New York Times since 1900. That's owned by the stockholders of the New York Times company.
I mean, because you can make that art. Like, look, I can go to the library for free, take a book out, and scan it. It doesn't mean I have the right to just put that out there on the internet.
I can't sell it to somebody else. Right, exactly. And that's what they're doing. And those are, the copyright laws, the intellectual property laws are always way behind. I mean, Mitch, as you know, with the audio content, we still have laws based on the 1940s, the way records were sold in 1940. And even though there's been revisions and we have the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the reality is the suite of laws we have about people's ownership of intellectual property have not kept up with what the challenge is of training LLMs and artificial intelligence. And that's going to have to be addressed.
I run across this all the time, particularly with the music. People will say, "Well, I bought the it's fair play. It's fair play. That's what I'm doing." You can't break the rules just because in your head fair play covers
fair usage.
Intellectual
property,
property.
Which is what you're talking about. Fair usage.
Oh, okay, fair play is something else. I guess
fair play.
Maybe
fair play is playing well with others. Yes.
Okay. Which I don't do, so I know nothing about this subject. Please strike
fair
that from the record. Erase that. Erase. So AI, very interesting subject to bring up because DeepSeek from the Chinese is now out there. Its significance is it's really kind of borrowed code from open source things that already exist.
By the way, of actually stealing data from ChatGPT to train that.
Not only is that true, is that they literally, if you look at their source code, it has ChatGPT written in there, or Claude,
there's no
or the other
honor
guys.
among thieves.
There's absolutely
the thing that I find frustrating about this whole thing is that recently we spent the last year talking about what is going to, because the government gave TikTok this ultimatum that we're giving you 9 months or whatever it was to find a new buyer, to move your data centers and algorithm, move all that stuff to an American company on U.S. soil, and then it went away for a day, I think less than 24 hours, and then and then it came back, and I just find there's so much hypocrisy because we're so concerned about national security with a Chinese company. But what about all the other apps and all the other companies that are allowed to operate here? And you just mentioned DeepSeek, another Chinese company, and we have a lot of products that are manufactured in China. So where does it end? So do we do we just not allow those products in the countries? Do we not allow those Chinese companies here? It's like, to me, it's like, if you're going to ban it, ban them all, but that's not realistic. That's never going to happen.
Well,
The
yeah.
whole economy will
here's
collapse.
the fuel that drives this whole argument is that they estimated that on Wall Street, trillions of dollars have been lost since DeepSeek was introduced, which means
Well,
that
yes,
the people are
in
going
the,
long
market.
on AI, ChatGPT, et cetera, all those LLMs.
Well, the
they're
market
losing.
valuation of those stocks, yeah, right. The market capitalization figure.
Thank you.
But there's an argument to be made of getting rid of those restrictions, because one theory is that they were able to use lower quality chips that were not trade restricted, because they were forced to, because they couldn't buy the NVIDIA chips that were on trade restrictions. But look, the reality is it's really hard. There's a lot of leakage in trade restrictions, and we may be better off going to, we're an open environment where this stuff is available to everybody with an open environment, because the restrictions, they don't work very well.
Well, that open source idea that DeepSeek sort of throws out there, even if they are stealing, open source equals we're stealing from ChatGPT and all these other guys, apparently is where everybody wants to go with AI.
Hey, look, at the end of the day, you got to build a better mousetrap. If your social media platform is better than the others, you'll have more users. We might want to think about breaking up some of these integrated technology companies like Google, Alphabet, Meta.
Right. So
make them unwind some of these products so that there's more competition worldwide.
okay. So let's talk about that. What exactly would that look like, and what's the outcome, the expected outcome of breaking all these companies up?
Well, my opinion, they shouldn't have been allowed. Facebook should never have been allowed to buy Instagram and WhatsApp. They were, but they, their argument was, well, it's not just, we're also competing with Google and these other people. And, we have to grow so that we can compete with these other mega companies. Well, maybe we need to start doing what was done in the first 20 years of the 20th century, where there was, the oil companies were sliced and diced. In 1984, the Bell system was dismembered by Judge Green. And right now, everybody's in violation of the Clayton and Sherman Acts. They are, but there's no appetite in the Justice Department to go after, especially now when Mark Zuckerberg has been paying off the President of the United States and other Elon Musk.
Well, I think you need to qualify that statement a little bit, is they may be influencing, but they're not physically handing cash to them.
Well, okay, it's a matter of debate, but
right. I'm just correcting the lawyer in the room.
If Mitchel was given $248 million to Donald Trump, we would probably be looking for some corruption there.
Definitely.
Yes, it's alleged. I will say it is alleged.
Alleged. Okay. I'm just looking out for your interest as your friend and as your advisor. Just want to make sure you get that.
Well, that's my personal opinion, but of course now I will never get hired by Facebook and Meta anymore after saying that publicly. But
yeah, you're okay. You're safe.
Of
course, AI is consuming this conversation too. So there you go.
Well, the other issue is that even though Open AI, which owns ChatGPT, and Anthropic, Anthropic is mostly owned by Amazon, I believe, and ChatGPT is basically controlled by Microsoft. because through the deals they've made and the stock, they're privately held companies right now. But maybe this technology shouldn't be dominated by the existing players in the technology space right now. Maybe they should grow to be competitors of Chrome and Google and Alphabet's products freely. Well, that's certainly not going to happen if they have operational control of their competitor.
Hey, Mark, are we getting some interesting comments up on YouTube from some
We
of our
are
listeners?
getting some interesting comments on YouTube. Let's see here. Sarah Thompson says, Steve, your hair looks great. We have Hershey says the sound of Alex's mic, the S27, sounds great. Or E27, sorry. And Shoji says, great show, good topics.
There you go.
Well,
Good to hear from
Sarah
you.
is sweet to say that, and Sarah had her left knee replaced this week, and she's recovering with her brand new either Smith and Nephews or Streiker titanium knee.
A Streiker titanium? What is
Well,
that?
that's the name of the company that makes them. There's two companies.
Oh.
I actually have a Smith and Nephews artificial right knee. I had my knee.
Now, what is it with
replaced.
these people? With everybody, you reach a certain age and you got to have a new knee, or you fall
Well,
down
I
and
had
that
a-
hip is gone.
I was with Sanders Hickey, who was on your show. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, yeah.
And I was skiing. I was staying at his house in Crested Butte. He has a beautiful home in Crested Butte, Colorado. And the last day of the vacation, it was my 50th birthday celebration. And Sanders was so nice to host us, my family out there. And he and I were out skiing, and I took the wrong turn across the mogul field, and my knee was severely pummeled.
Eviscerated. We like to say eviscerated. All right, cool. And another a trivia thing. First of all, Alex, why don't you tell people how they can reach out? Because we really would like your questions and comments. Comments and questions, no problem. Suggestions, also expected. How do folks reach out to us and touch?
Yeah, absolutely. There's numerous ways you can do that. You can go to ask.thelastangrydj.com. So starting on Sunday mornings, as everyone knows, we live stream the show at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Starting early in the morning, you can go to that website. That's ask.thelastangrydj.com. And that is our Q&A system where you can put in questions for people on the show or for us, anything you want to discuss on the show. You can also vote on those questions, which tells us how important they are to you, and we can prioritize those. You can also chat on those questions as well. So that's the best place to do that. And of course, our Discord community, I will give a plug for that and put up the QR code on the screen over my left shoulder there, and I'll leave that up on the screen for a little bit. If you go there, that is our online community where you can chat with us after the show, during the week, anytime, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about, whether it's related to the podcast or something else that you want to discuss. That is a good place to do that. And of course, we are available on social media at The Last Angry DJ, pretty much everywhere. And of course, this show is also available as an audio podcast if that's how you prefer to listen to the show. And you can find this podcast in any podcast app. Just look it up.
Yeah, I think we need to institute some old radio technology that's worked well. The instant ripoff for when questions come in. So maybe we'll think about doing that, instant ripoffs. And here's the thing. Our next show is our 50th show, so it's kind of like our 50th anniversary. What should we be doing for our 50th anniversary? We need some input from you folks. So please utilize those entryways into our social media to make suggestions. What would you like to see us do for our 50th show? That's next week. And so far we did. Yeah, let them eat cake, Or what are all the other terms? You made a cake and they ate it too. Or what are all these cake-related references? Anyhow, they're all out there. So make some suggestions. And we appreciate Steve being here. It's good. Steve asked me during the week, this may have been a huge error on his part. Maybe he's searching for a new microphone. So let's go around the room. We'll start with Steve. What do you got hanging there in front of you?
Well, that's a AKG Lyra that I got for free when I worked for Harman. And
you should have held out for a big Neumann or something.
Well, I also have another another mic that used to be connected to my Windows environment, and that's a Audio Technica mic, but I use this Lyrica one. But it's not, it's just a USB consumer grade mic. It's not like a RE20, which is really
It sounds okay. Sounds okay.
I would
Not
rather
great.
probably have a RE20.
Well, let's go around the room here. Let's go over to Mark. That looks like an RE20, or it might be a 27. I can't tell. It's a black one.
This is an Electro Voice RE20 Black Edition.
All right, there you go. Sometimes referred to as a Heil.
What is it? The Electro Voice 7, not the Electro Voice. What's the mic everybody uses on podcasts?
The FM 7B. Yeah.
I hate the way it sounds. It sounds like it's inside your throat when everybody's on it. It boosts the low, and I don't like the sound of it.
Well, there's a new Shure mic available, which I'll show you right now. There it is. It's a condenser mic. It's the MV4, excuse me. Now, the only downside is that is an XLR output. It doesn't have a USB on it. So if you wanted to run like a USB on it at the same time, you'd have to use this little Shure gadget.
Yeah,
Let's see if I can find it. Here's the little gadget.
I just want to say something about the technology on that mic, because the new Shure Nexadyne microphone uses some of this technology. This whole line of microphones, including the SM4, has a Faraday cage inside, so you get the absolute most RF rejection possible on these mics.
And I'm showing the gadget you'd have to attach to it in order to get over to USB. It's the MVXTU, and you can use that on a dynamic mic. It's phantom powered, which is a neat way to do. So I would consider this microphone as a possible. That's like $200, and it's a condenser microphone. So it's going to have, if your room is echoey and not treated, it's not going to sound good in there, along with this little guy. And then there's a more expensive, the SM7B. DB, excuse me, that also has a built-in USB output. It's kind of those are good Shure products that are available to you.
Yeah, everybody uses that as virtue signaling that, on every single podcast. I'm so sick of seeing that.
No, that's not the one that's not the one everybody's using. It's the MV. What is it, Alex? Help me out here. The bigger one that people are using.
Well, the SM7B is the more expensive version that everybody uses.
Right.
And
if you're going to use
the
those,
Sennheiser MK series shotgun mics, I like the way that sounds on a lot of
414.
They use that pretty extensively on the Bulwark creators. Almost all of them are using that Sennheiser mic, and I like the way it sounds on straight talking.
Yeah.
So I will say,
this is a boom that Gator makes for sure. That's not funny. That's a low profile that you could attach to any of those microphones. Kind of a cool setup. So
one thing I want to say to Steve about I want to address the SM7B, because I do like that microphone. The problem is a lot of people plug that microphone into crappy preamps, and that microphone needs a very good preamp, which affects the sound. And also, a lot of people don't know how to properly process the sound of a microphone, so they don't use high-pass filters. And if you get too close to that microphone, there's a lot of proximity effect. So
it's got too much,
it's inexperienced sound engineers not knowing how to set up those microphones.
No, it's become the predominant sound of podcasts, is this very pronounced proximity effect where people are up on top of the microphone, and I don't like it. I think it, I don't personally like it. It's just a taste thing.
I don't like what Howard Stern does with that TLM 103. He's got a TLM 103 Neumann, and he's always got it cupped in his hand when he's talking, and he's all over it.
Yeah, so
no windscreen, nothing.
Lady Gaga.
He's popping the P's on it like it's going out of style. I think this is the Shure if you want to get it. $600, but it's got all that. You see at the back of it, you can have a headphone plugged into that. You can tweak the EQ from the back and the volume, and it has some software that you can run on it also. So it's kind of a nice little setup.
Well, I like Mark's setup where he's got the black so it doesn't jump out at you, and he's got the mic, either he's got the stand or the mic arm below in the lower part of the shot, and there's not too much proximity effect on it. Same thing with
it's designed not to have. proximity.
Yeah, that's a proprietary technology that Electro Voice calls variable D. So you only should get a volume increase as you get closer, but not an excessive bass buildup. So that's
Well,
unique to those.
there's a podcaster, Chris Saliza, and he's been going through a bunch of different mics, and he had one where he would move through the proximity effect constantly. So the EQ of the podcaster mic would change depending on where his head was located, and it just was very distracting the way
It is because a lot of mics have off-axis coloration depending on
Yes.
where you are, and that's a problem with a lot of mics. You have to be
Right.
look. This is all education. It's about training people to. There is no magic button that can fix bad mic technique. Period. Now,
That's
some
true.
mics
And-
are more forgiving, like the art. This is why I use these on guests. Is because people that come on a show, they've never been on a microphone. Oftentimes they're nervous because we got cameras in the room. This mic is way more forgiving, and I'm going to turn away from the camera. But if I'm talking directly, if I go off 3 inches off axis, 3
Right.
inches off axis, it's a lot more consistent. There's more room to play. Whereas on an SM7B, if I went off axis, my voice just disappears completely. Now that's good if you're in a bad sounding room, but it's not good if you've got someone who's just constantly moving around like crazy on the mic.
Yeah, the
Well, it
original
beats, you
king
know-
of microphones, the Heil PR40, had that problem because it's an end fire or end address microphone. It was great for picking up, getting rid of the sound in the room, but it was horrible if you got off mic. So you always
A
had
lot
that
of
thing
people get
pointed right
mics,
in
they
their face.
don't realize which end you're supposed to talk into.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. That
Right,
drives me
Mark?
crazy.
When Mark's Brett,
Yeah.
they get a mic.
This
and
is
they're
the end
talking into
address,
the
but
side of it.
right. This is end address.
And
Um,
Alex,
but-
you have the big brother to the 20. You got the 27 there with the neodymium magnets in it.
Yeah, so it's a different sounding microphone. It has in addition to being about 6 dB or so hotter in terms of the signal
Right.
output, it has a brighter character to it. Now, the cool thing about this mic, it has more switches, so you actually has more tonal sculpting options. Because if you don't like the way your voice sounds in the default configuration, you can flip this little dip switch, and you will get a reduction by 3 dB, a broad reduction by 3 dB from about 1.5K to about, I think, 4 or 5K. And so you can reduce that high end to make it sound a little bit darker. So it's
Is that
even
where
more
S sibilance
flexible.
is? Is that the frequency range of
A lot of
sibilance?
so in male voices, there's a lot more sibilance in the 4 to 5K
Right.
range, and for women, depending on their voices, but generally it's a little bit higher around 6K. So it just depends. It has to be de-essers can be used. Obviously, Mark probably knows about this with broadcast and audio processing.
Right.
But you can use de-essers, which basically are going to hone in on specific frequencies to minimize that S sound, that sibilant sound that you can get. Also, another thing that people don't realize with microphones, what I've done here by placing it off to the side will minimize plosives. But in addition to that, it will actually minimize sibilance because all that energy that's coming out of your mouth is not hitting the capsule smack on. So
Right.
if I turn my head, you'll see that my voice gets there's a little more presence and maybe slightly more bass in my voice here. But also, so if you don't like that, all you have to do is just turn to the side there, and now I have less sibilance.
Well, if you want to watch, they turn it way up. Have you ever seen the skit on Saturday Night Live about the delicious dish? They're working the SM7 with a lot of proximity effect,
Right.
Because that's
That's
the
what-
way a lot of stuff on on National Public Radio sounds.
Well, there's a
Exactly.
lot of people that take that same microphone and they're using it as a handheld. It was never meant to be a
I know. I hate that
handheld
one.
microphone.
Well,
Or
not
the
only that, you
opposite, where
drop
they got
it,
the
you
little
destroy
tiny
it.
little, they got the
Yeah.
tiny little lavaliers, and they're like at the red carpet. They say they got this little lavalier. Like, well, what do you think you did? What is that? It looks like a flea.
Well, I hate
instead of-
what's the one that you clip on? It's got the big puff on it.
Oh,
Well, a
the
lot of them
Rode-
have
yeah,
that.
the Rode Wireless Go that started
Right.
that whole thing, and then DJI started making them, and
Oh, it
yeah,
just-
that
it
drive.
just
Don't even
looks
get me
stupid in the
started.
shot.
It looks
Yeah.
so bad, and this is the crazy thing. People that do street interviews started to make this popular, but I'm starting to see this trickle down into, or depending on which direction you want it, but in the pro
Trickle up.
world, trickle up, I guess. But I saw Johnny Depp on the red carpet, and somebody was going to ask him a question, and they had one of those, I don't know if it was a Rode or a DJI, but the little transmitter with the built-in mic, which doesn't sound very good. They actually handed it to him and made him clip it onto his own shirt, which for anyone that does production, that is so unprofessional to make the talent and the actor on the spot clip that on. You are supposed to use a handheld microphone.
Well,
I'm sorry,
but
there's
production
just
standards now that like
they've gone
national
downhill.
TV, this is your camera,
And your
Yeah,
mic.
but that's a pretty good looking camera.
Right.
But I'm just talking about audio, though. It drives me crazy.
Right.
Never
And
ever give somebody a microphone and make them put it on. That is
Well,
just
but
so.
Well,
see,
anybody that's ever done interviews and has a handheld mic like the classic 635A, and you're interviewing people, have you ever had that situation where you interview them and they reach up and grab the mic and you're like, go
I
like
was
this?
Okay, so Mitch, I would say one of the first things that they teach you in broadcast school, never let the interviewee take the mic because they will fully control the situation.
I learned that in 1972 in the first TV class I took in 9th grade in instructional television, how to use that RE635A to interview somebody. You also have to remember when you ask them a question, if it's the only
Turn the mic back.
you got to put it in their face.
No, but the other thing is people forget to they'll have it in their face and they'll ask the question, well, what do you think of that? And they're asking the question off mic and then they get confused.
Right, correct.
And that's when you have a lapel mic for the talent while they're doing it, and they have the handheld so they can place that microphone where they need it and place it where it doesn't get controlled by the person you're interviewing. That's the other thing.
That is correct. Never let control the mic.
No,
You'll
no.
never get it back. Yes.
But so I've had the thing where I've like literally had a hand, whatever.
I've had that at
a tug of
remotes
war.
I've had that at remotes when you're interviewing a prize winner or something when I was in
Yeah.
the radio business on the air, and they try wrestling the mic away from you, right?
But you know what? There is something to be said for small mics because anybody that's gone out into the public to interview people, when you have a crew with you and you've got a microphone in your hand and you're putting on the radio personality or TV guy, and you walk down a crowded walkway with a bunch of people, if you make eye contact with somebody, some poor victim, and you start walking towards them with a microphone in your hand, some people will run. They will literally turn and run like a deer from a car. So some people will accept the invitation of an interview, but some people are like, they're immediately like you're holding a gun at them and they're like dodging.
Sometimes,
the
and
mic.
I know
Or they're looking at it like, what's that?
I don't see it used as much anymore because it doesn't work in a lot of environments. But it's a very old mic. But the Electro Voice RE50 was a very famous interview mic because it had a long handle, but it had an omni capsule, so you could actually put it in the middle of two people and not move it, and it'll pick up both voices very well. But again, if you're on a, say you go to a conference, you go to NAB or NAM or something, those are very noisy show floors. So to bring an omnidirectional mic is
No, that's not a good mic for that environment.
It's
Absolutely.
not. It really
Well,
isn't.
the other thing with a 635A is that you get handling noise just by holding it. There's another version, the number escapes me, that was the next step up from the 635A. It's literally a 635A stuffed in a fatter microphone,
Right.
and it had the shock absorbing stuff
I
going
think that's
on.
called an RE10, is that? Or
Doesn't sound right. I know an RE16 is a different mic. I think for some reason 50 sticks out. But
I think you're right. I think it's an RE50. It's the same mic electronically, but it's in a rubber isolation
Exactly.
holder thing.
And if you've ever looked into a audio guy's bag for a TV station, those mics are beat to crap. Like they truly are. Like the 635A is like the workhorse mic. Probably still
But you
is.
could take an RE635A and a hammer and a 2x4 and
Famously so. A great
hammer
demo
and
at
nail in
NAB.
and still use the thing.
They've done that. So
Mitch,
mic technique
how do
is
those
important
mics get so? How do those mics get so beat up?
because it's like
we know?
another tool, and you put it in
Oh,
a
yeah,
bag and it's
because they're-
banging into other.
Oh, it's thrown in the trunk of the
Exactly.
camera guy's car and it's dropped on the ground and you're at a boat show and you drop it in the pool,
Yeah, exactly. They take a lot of grief. And To Alex's point earlier about mic technique, it is so important. I have a AKG 414. You can just see the tippy top of it with a little foam on it to cut back on plosives. But you can also get rid of plosives by, when I'm reading copy and I want it to be super bright and normal, I don't put anything on it. On my Neumann, I do have one on it right now just to keep it clean. But you smile through words that have plosives in it. So if you say the word plosive, it does put out a force of wind. But if you smile through the word, wow, this plosive, you can literally cut the plosive down just by using your own mic technique in front of the microphone. But I can't watch Howard or listen to Howard Stern on Sirius anymore because he's got that mic right on. He's all over it like this. Well, Billy Joel, when you were first playing the piano, he's got his hand capped around it, and that mic becomes part of his little.
Yeah,
he's covering half his face.
That's just shtick that he's doing at that point.
He's in love with his voice. How many radio people have you met, Steve, that are in love with their voice in their headphones that play with that microphone so they sound really professional?
Well, that's true, but we all hate our voice when we hear it played back because it's not the way it sounds inside our head.
The beginning, after a while, you get out of that. Yeah. So anyhow,
I think
what are your wish
loves the
microphones, guys? What microphones do you wish you could have if you could have anything, and money was no object? Because I have no money.
Oh, that's easy. For me, I would say that, there's too many to list, but definitely I still want to get a Neumann 87, a U87 at some point. That is a studio classic. Ta-da! And it keeps, I should probably, every year I say I'm going to buy an 87, and the dumbest thing, the last 10 years, that mic has gone up substantially over the last 10 years. So it keeps getting more expensive, and the longer I wait, the lesser chance there is that I can actually afford that mic.
It's a collector's item.
Yeah,
like our guest who was on not too long ago was telling me, and shockingly so, that my pristine U87, which I bought in 1979, is worth like $7,000 or $8,000.
Right.
That's more than it is new.
Right.
What's up with that?
Well, adjusted for inflation, though, but yeah.
No, not for adjusted. It literally go on eBay and check the price.
Yeah,
it's
I'm sure you can get 8,000 or 10,000 for it, no question.
Yep. Yeah.
The only thing is they're a little picky. They have to be rebuilt after a certain amount. You can break them easily. There's downsides to a lot of those super high end mics. If you're interested in that topic, Rick Beato has been interviewing a lot of people that have been production people on the 1970s, records like Steely Dan. He had Alan Parsons on this week. And a lot of the discussion is about the microphone choice in the studio for different instruments and singers, etc. So, there's no perfect microphone for everything.
But there is a microphone for everyone. So keep that in mind. So we all have what we want. I think my 414 is a good choice. I do have it on some processing. I have an old Radio Symmetrics, thanks to Alex, or the Canadian Broadcasting System. I think there's a sticker on the back of it. Alex, am I going to get in trouble? They're going to come over and arrest me with the Mounties? Will come over and bust my door down.
Unfortunately, they have no jurisdiction in the United States, so you're safe, man. They're not.
Well, no,
they're not
crossing the 51st state, and then you can go in federal court.
Oh, there you go. So I've got that with a little processing. Radio people like processing on their microphone. They don't like it super clean. Engineers and musicians like it super clean. So, a little bit of, I have like 3-4 dB of processing and maybe a little bump around 4K, and that's it. And that's all I need. And I don't like to have the microphone dominating the scene. That's just my personal preference. I mean, I don't think it has to announce that it's a podcast.
I would much rather have a microphone in the shot than somebody have the microphone too far away and it not sound good, because I don't want to hear the room, right? So to me, like, people are so used to this look with podcasts. Like, I don't care. I'd rather have the microphone in the shot.
That's true, but there are some shotgun mics can easily be put out of the frame and still have.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I mean, I could have a Sennheiser 416 just slightly above, boomed ahead, right above my head, out of the shot, and maybe maybe I'll try that someday. But for me, this look doesn't. And also, there's just nowhere. I have a low rise mic arm. There is nowhere with all the equipment and my desk, the way things are configured, there's nowhere that I could put this mic or any mic that I have, and I've tried. There's nowhere I could put it where I won't hit it. It's just they're constantly, all my mics are always in the way. I always end up hitting them unless they're in this one specific spot off to the side.
Well, some people like to have their hand on it and shift it around. I watched Office Hours the other day, and there's a lot of great equipment being shown there. But people have these nervous habits of constantly readjusting their mic position.
Yeah,
I just
you don't
have a
need to
little
do
gator.
that.
I have a gator boom that comes out, and I don't touch my microphone. I'm well away from it, and I like it just enough so I know where to be centered on the mic. Because if I'm centered properly, this is where mic should be. It doesn't have to follow me over here because that's not where I'm going to be. I want to be right around here. So, yeah, Mike's personal choice. You know, you don't have to impress anybody because, you know, there's even, what is it? It's not Samsung. Maybe it is. There's like a $35 weird microphone. It looks like a shaving thing. I saw John Edelson showing.
That's not Samsung. That's Samson.
Samson, that's it.
Yeah.
It's like $35. It sounds okay. I mean, in the right hands, it probably would do the job. I've got on my table over here the what is it called? The Mic Me that I think I suckered Steve into buying one. I don't know. What did you do with your old Mic Me?
I have it. You want me to send it to you?
Yeah, there you go. It's a box with it must be a knockoff capsule inside of it. It's just literally a box this big
yeah,
that
I
sits
never got
on.
it to work
The problem with cheaper microphones is that usually the diaphragm, the size of the capsule, is usually substandard and smaller than typically you want a 1-inch capsule, which is what a more expensive mic will have. And the problem with these cheaper microphones, including that Samsung mic, which I've heard, is that you have to really be careful about the sound pressure level that you're putting into those things, because they can distort the internal electronics, and because they have A to D converters, they usually blow pretty quickly, and they can sound really bad really quickly if you're not careful.
Yeah, it's definitely. And Derek was the one that was telling me about the way you can test a large diaphragm by huffing into it. And if it starts cutting out because of the condensation from like when you blow on your glasses, and you get a little bit of that, fogging on there. If the mic starts cutting out, it needs to go back to the manufacturer to be touched up. And to your point, Steve, my U87, which is quite old, I did have it reconditioned in like 1988 by Gotham in New York. And it probably needs to have some of those electrolytic capacitors replaced.
Probably.
And the FET needs to be rebiased because of the age of the equipment, but still sounds pretty good. And I bet if you went in and fixed it and made it, totally up to spec, that I would approach the mic and say, "It sounds totally different. What's up with that?" Well, it's sounding correct. You're just compensated for it over the years. So, mic technique, mic choice. Yeah, we don't like to shame anybody into buying a certain thing. Somebody with a $35 mic, properly used and tweaked to where it needs to go, can sound, pretty darn close to U87. But guess what? My U87, I've had people tell me, why don't you use that for your Zoom conversation? It'd be wasted. I don't need to have. I've got a U87 from 1979, a vintage microphone, large capsule, and I've got a Neve 8801, which is worth quite a bit of money, as the amplifier preamp, with compression, de-essing, and all that good stuff.
Well, if you were having
put it on a Zoom call, it'd be wasted.
If you were having an acoustic musician coming to your studio for a session, yeah, that'd probably be you'd set it up and use it. But it's
for voice.
Right.
I've got it set up for me for voice because it's my axe.
Well, I have seen it where it's set up between in the middle of a string quartet or something. Is it? I've seen mics. That mic used
it's a good vocal mic.
Yeah,
but it's also used on drums
with the appropriate pop screen in front of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a pop screen, but I just like the little foam doohickey because it's quick and easy, and I don't have to worry about too much gear hanging in front of me. And the funny thing about it, in the United States, Alex, I don't know how this is in Canada. On the East Coast, you walk into a studio, you're going to see a U87 on a mic stand with a copy stand there, and that's what most people are going to do voiceover. If you go over to the West Coast, you're going to see a 414 boom mic, like you were suggesting, used. So for some reason, depending on what coast you're on, you're going to see one mic or the other prevalently, not all
Well,
the time.
it depends on the talent, because you're right. In the world of voiceover and animation, I see a lot of U87s being used in studios, but I also see a lot of Sennheiser 416s. In fact, the local voiceover school here in Vancouver, they use 416s in the booth that they use for students that record their auditions and demos in. So that's another very popular microphone. It just all depends on what you're doing. Also, for ADR for films, I see a lot of 416s being used, and they'll put them sometimes a little bit further back from the actor if they need to do something, a part where they're screaming or something like that. So it just all depends. You got to use the right tool for the right job, depending on the talent.
Well, the
also
416
high-end
is a better match for what was used to record these scenes in the first place in a motion picture dialogue. They're all boom mics that they're using. They might even be using a 416, or they're going to be using a Sheps or something else like that.
Well, some very famous talents, they have their own microphone that they record with. Barbara Streisand only uses a Telefunken M49 tube preamp mic for all of her recording work. She has her own personal one that she brings to the recording session.
Good luck replacing that capsule. Mark, do we have any questions coming in or comments over on the YouTube universe about what we're talking about? I noticed that people get excited when we talk mics.
Yes. So regarding the plosives, Bretta Verse says, but an angry DJ doesn't smile.
There you go.
Well said, Mr. Below. Appreciate that.
Oh, I don't know.
Brett, isn't it?
Wait a second. Let me address that. I have had arguments with significant others of the opposite sex who were very angry and had a smile on their face right before they killed you.
Oh, did they grit their teeth too? How about some comments coming over from YouTube?
Comments coming over for YouTube. Let's see. Hershey, SE Electronics SUV7 and or capsule regarding the microphones. And everyone has a suggestion for the 50th episode, the guest that you had that lives in your building.
Oh, that's Lois Nakame. She's a clinical psychologist, and she's probably an expert on me next to Steve, who's counseled me before on issues and also consults on the shows sometimes. I say, hey, how do you do? Well, you need to engage this, or you need to do that, or you were perfect. You were perfect. So, yeah, I'd love to have Lois. Honestly, this is a man's world in some respects, and for that I apologize profusely. There's so much technology involved. Doesn't mean that women aren't as good with it. It's just there's not as many people are willing to talk about it publicly. We invite women guests. We would love to have more women on the program, like Lois or Laura, who's also a fan of the show. And I did invite a couple of novelists to come on the program, because I love the way Bill Maher interviews novelists. He reads the book, and then he asks intelligent questions. So I would love an opportunity to do that too with a member of the opposite sex. Are we allowed to say that?
Sure.
Alex, am I allowed to say it that way?
I think you just did, Mitch.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I don't step on some pronoun or way to say something, which invariably happens with me. So we've covered pretty much everything that we want to talk again. Again, Steve, you are a man of all reasons and seasons and subjects. You seem to be an expert on all of them, and we greatly appreciate.
Plenty of areas of ignorance that I have. Don't worry, they're out there.
Well, I'll make a list of them. Don't forget, next week is our 50th show. We're also going to probably preview our credit role that Alex and I have been working on. We have lots of people that we need to thank. And Alex, why don't we do our best to thank them now? Some of the people that work so hard.
Yeah, I just want to thank Boinks Software and Mimo Live for letting us use that application to run the entire production, and specifically Oliver Breidenbach, who's been instrumental even before this show launched in really helping us set up and work through a lot of the technical stuff on the back end, and just providing feedback and helping me tweak things to make sure that the show looks and sounds as good, best as it can. It's really changed the way that we do production, specifically with Zoom, and I can see the quality differences between the earlier episodes that we were doing and when Mima Live came into the picture. So thank you. Also, thank you to everybody on the back end crew, and also some of the back end crew is on the show today, like Mark Giuliani, who we really appreciate managing our questions and allowing us to use Mukana, our Q&A system, and of course the people Office Hours Global and Alex Lindsay for providing that technology, and Laura Thompson as well, who's part of our community as well, who's actually our community manager. Thank you to everything that you do as well, and of course to you, the listeners, because we wouldn't have a show without you if no one was watching this show. So thank you to everybody who was in the live chat today. Let's see if we can cover everyone. We got Hershey Trevetti, Bretaverse, Vintage Nouveau. We've got Shoji Productions in there, and we have Ernesto in there. Sarah Thompson. We've got lots of people. Did I get everyone? I think I go. Daniel Gorby commented it earlier there. And I think that is everyone. If I missed you, I apologize, but there's lots of people there. So thank you to the greater community as well. And also just a reminder too, if you would like to listen to this as an audio podcast, do look us up. We are available on all platforms, including Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, and all available platforms.
Thank you, Alex. That's so well done. Do you have that on a screen in front of you? Or do you just do that out of memory? Because
That's all memory. That's all
You're
memory.
amazing. You're
Speaking
amazing.
of Dan Gorby, you should have Dan Gorby on as a guest. Dan was my roommate. We worked at 96 Super Q together and some other radio stations, and he retired after many years at Cox Broadcasting, where he was a sales executive. He was a sales manager of their operation in Atlanta.
All right, Dan, consider that an invitation. We'll reach out to you, perhaps get a invitation from Steve. And that means anybody that has a comment or a question, please put them on, even though we're not on the air live. We would love to see your comments, and the usual suspects via Discord, or you can go to our webcast. I guess it's a web page that we have that Alex has slaved over. Would love. Can you say that? We're not allowed to say that anymore. I can't say slaved over. Oh, well.
Probably wouldn't use that.
I didn't mean it. And
worked hard.
Yeah, so worked hard to create. That's
you
again.
only
that's
make
a reason.
It worse, Mitch, when you say, "Can I say that?"
Yeah, but my stumbles and missteps
that's what makes
provide
it
entertainment
funny when he does that. Oh, Mitch.
Yeah, but my missteps provide some level of entertainment. People love to see me squirm and complain. Yeah, Steve, show it off. Show it off. We see you. He's playing with his Zoom crazy background. Don't use virtual backgrounds, please. They suck. They're like TV sets over fireplaces. You look idiotic with that. And you get that Jell-O head effect, and everything. And I hate you for your hair, Steve, just so you know that.
There we go. It's all
I
mine.
just don't. Most of us are follically challenged on here, and we'd like to keep it that way. So we can rent this space over our forehead. Don't forget, next week, the 50th show, something special is going to happen. I'm sure Alex is working hard right now on something dramatic and interesting. So, so far, no guests have been harmed in the making of that 50th show, which is on our schedule so far. Thanks again, Steve. Thanks again, Steve, for being here. We appreciate it.
Pleasure.
And be safe wherever you are. We appreciate it. Oh, don't forget to smash the subscribe button. Thanks a lot.